Welcome to our relentless agents and investors from across the country. Today is Thursday, August 4th, 2022. And this is All the Leads Mastermind podcast number 389. Hey, Bruce, we weren't sure you were going to be right on time. So if it's okay with you, I'll start. One of our subscribers, Eddie Van Buskirk, is on daddy duty today, but he called me with a question he wanted me to ask. And I told him we would send him a recording of the call, and he's probably listening anyway. Is that okay? Okay if we start with that?
Yeah, let's start with it.
All right. Eddie has recently been running into a lot of reverse mortgages, and which is kind of to be expected. The baby boomers getting older, and unfortunately, they're leaving their estates behind in record numbers. But he said it's a very common perception with the heirs of the reverse mortgage property that they can't sell it because there's no equity. And in my mind, I think that's could be true, but if that were true, they could still sell it as a short sale. And in my mind, that's probably a misperception. I know you have to be 62 to take out a reverse mortgage, and the average lifespan now is 78. And I know you can't have more than, you can't take out more than 60% of your equity. So it would seem like that a significant number of them, unless people are living to 100, do have substantial equity. And I wanted to get your take and the other coaches' take on that for Eddie.
Well, the reverse mortgages that I've run into, I've kind of seen a mixed bag. I've seen lots of people who not only took out 60% of their equity and had 40% left, but combine that with the market that we've seen over the past several years. And a lot of folks with reverse mortgages have plenty of equity left in their property. With that said, I've had 50-50, maybe 50% of the sales that I was involved with reverse mortgage did not have equity. And in those instances, sometimes the family wants to go through the short sale process. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it depends on what kind of extra belongings there are, what personal property, vehicles, different pieces of value are maybe not part of the real estate, but connected with that overall process that they're going to have to get rid of. So there are ways, if it's your commission that causes someone to go into the negative, there are typically ways where you can be involved with the entire distribution and process of dissolving and selling of those assets, and they would have equity. I'm just surprised to hear that so many of them don't, because that's not been my experience over the past several years. 5 years ago, the majority of reverse mortgage deals that I saw didn't have equity. Today, most do.
Yeah, and I think he said he wasn't really, they weren't digging into it real deeply, but his opinion was it was just automatically the perception of the heirs that since it's a reverse mortgage, they couldn't sell it and there isn't any equity. So I assume a lot of them are misperceiving that it really isn't true.
I would say that many are misperceiving, and it could be based on old reverse mortgage structure as well. So if they structured a reverse 10 years ago, they might not have equity. If they structured a reverse anytime in the last 4 or 5 years, there's a new structure to them that was almost required by the government. And these new structures really help a lot. It's unlikely that someone doesn't have any equity this day and age, as long as the mortgage that they structured was more than or less than maybe 5 years ago.
I have a follow-up to that, but I see White Simpson raising his hand. White, you wanted to make a comment? Can we unmute White?
Somebody request him to unmute, give him permission to unmute. I can't do it on my end.
All right, well, we're waiting for him to unmute. The follow-up to that from Eddie was, what incentive is there for the heirs to do a short sale? And my answer to that, my wife, as you all know, has literally done a couple thousand short sales. number one, she's pleasantly surprised how often the heirs just want to do the right thing. They don't want to see grandma's house go into foreclosure. And what I told White, and I'm not sure if this is how accurate.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, hang on just one second.
Okay.
I'm just answering. And then the second part of that is, could be that although it's highly, highly unlikely, if there are other assets with the estate and the property gets foreclosed, those assets could conceivably be at jeopardy. So and Bruce, I'll let you weigh in on that, or do you want to let?
Wait. What did you say, Jim? How would the asset be at jeopardy?
Well,
what would that be?
Well, if the house went into foreclosure, the estate property, and there was a deficiency judgment, could conceivably attach to other assets of the estate? It's highly unlikely.
How could a reverse go into foreclosure?
No, we're talking apples and oranges. We're talking. He's just talking short sales in general. It wasn't. That was the initial question. But he said also, just generically, if property are in short sale, yeah, I see what you're saying. If it's a reverse mortgage, well, it could
go into foreclosure.
Yeah, it could
go in foreclosure. Sure. The heirs don't pay the bill. The estate doesn't pay the mortgage off. It could absolutely go into foreclosure. And
reverse mortgages always have mortgage insurance, don't they? Pretty sure they do.
Depending on the type of type of loan, yeah, they should have mortgage insurance. I've seen reverses go into foreclosure though.
Okay, well, I haven't. That's the only reason I'm asking is that I know that one of the premises of it is that if the borrower outlives the mortgage, in other words, it's based on actuarial tables, and if the borrower outlives the reverse, in other words, the equity in the property, runs out in terms of doing that, the borrower or the estate isn't responsible for paying the lender the difference because of the mortgage insurance on the property. And it's a specific kind of mortgage insurance that's based on actuarials on the reverse mortgages. Mm-hmm. That was the only reason I was bringing it up. I don't know how that would go. I don't know how that would typically go negative, but I never mind my point.
It's unlikely that the bank, if they did end up filing foreclosure, taking the asset, it's unlikely that they would try to attach the estate. To Tim's point, I'm not sure that they could attach the estate if there's mortgage insurance involved. It's unlikely. A short sale would help eliminate that potential risk, however small it is. Now, it doesn't mean that a short sale doesn't come with a deficiency judgment. I've seen short sales where the bank said, hey, we're going to approve the short sale, but you have to give us $50,000 over the next couple of years. I've seen that happen. So there is a short sale doesn't completely eliminate risk, but it does help offset some of the risk, because if there's a foreclosure, it's very likely in a lot of situations, I'm not sure about reverses, but it's very likely that the bank is going to come after the deficiency. They might not follow through with it, but it's certainly more likely.
Right. And
I'm not trying to put too fine a point on it. I know that White had a question to ask, but let me just ask my question again. Reverse mortgage, I'm not making any payments on a reverse mortgage. So I don't know how it would go into a deficiency if I'm not making payments on it. The whole premise behind reverse mortgage is that I don't make payments. I'm simply getting my equity back out of my house on a scheduled basis. I'm lending myself my equity.
Right, Tim, but it's due and payable within a year of the death. If the death certificate is filed and it's not paid off, they could foreclose that way. Again, we're talking extremely hypothetical, unlikely situations, but it could happen.
You're saying after the death of the decedent.
Correct. The death of the decedent triggers a due on sale on the reverse mortgage.
Sure. I got that part. I'm talking about as long as it wouldn't be in deficiency when they died, or it shouldn't be.
Correct.
It could go that way if they didn't sell it out, but that's a different story. That's a non-performance on behalf of the beneficiary. That's a different issue.
So, considering that we're kind of pontificating on a lot of different things, let's curb the discussion over to White. Because
Yeah,
we
I
could sit
agree.
here and bounce theory and discussion back and forth on this all day. Eddie, to you, a lot of the people that are saying that they don't have equity, find a way to explore that a little bit more with them, because I would bet that many of them do have equity that they don't know about. They think that that it has a reverse, and therefore all of the equity is gone and at the bank in the bank's hands. And the simple fact is most of the time that's not the case. So find a way to dig a little bit deeper into that and present them with options. Work on getting a payout or a payoff on that mortgage, and they'll probably have a lot more equity than they thought.
Ask to review the mortgage document. If there's a, do you have your hands on the reverse mortgage documentation? That'd be a great thing for you to have the opportunity to sit down and review it with them. I think just say, I've looked at a lot of these things and never seen that to be the case. Can we look at it together? And there's your opportunity to meet with the people.
Yep.
Guys, that's the reason I jumped on here, because I've had 2 cases, and I just so happened to sell a lady's home for a client of mine, and I found out she does reverse mortgages. So I called and I picked her brain, and she told me it's from 5 to 8 years. There's usually equity, and it all depends on how they took it out. If they take a big lump sum out, and in Georgia, the way they do the deeds is if you look and they're 90 years up, and they base back to 150, and then whatever their age is, that is how they determine how long that mortgage is for. That they're using 150, but she said a lot of times they have equity, but a lot if it's any longer than 6 to 7 years, a lot of times they don't. And what I have found out is the biggest problem is communicating with a mortgage company, because I had a girl call me off of a lead that I got from y'all, and her biggest problem was she could, and I even tried to get my closing attorney to do it. They could not get it. We couldn't get a payoff, and we had to have a death certificate and all that before they'd even talk to us. So I hope that's helpful.
That is helpful. So, White, an authorization. Now, yes, you're going to have to turn his death certificate over. That's absolutely true. An authorization to release information combined with the death certificate should be able to get you through to the mortgage company. You're going to have to go on some forums and find what the appropriate fax number is. And yes, they're going to want a fax. What the appropriate fax number is to fax that information in. But once it's in, you should be able to get the payoff. And they're absolutely going to need a copy of the death certificate and potentially a copy of the will. I would say that Jim and Pam, that might be more your purview to say whether a copy of the will is needed, but the death certificate and an authorization to release information to you, the agent or investor, is also needed.
And Bruce, I think also if they move, because I was calling a FSBO, and I found out it was a reverse mortgage. The grandmother had moved out, and I don't necessarily think they have to die. If they have vacated the home, I think they can call it to you also. I'm not positive about that.
No, you're correct. Actually, I think
Okay.
you're correct. Yeah.
It's supposed to be owner occupied.
Right.
Yep. Good.
That's great info.
That's good insight, White. And just so everyone knows, you guys are going to see this in your probate cases. I don't want to say more and more, but as reverse mortgages have become restructured more favorably to the consumer over the past few years, there should be more people that do a reverse mortgage. They had an absolutely terrible reputation for a long time. Terrible. I would argue that it was almost never good for the consumer. It's not a bad thing for the consumer anymore.
Well, a lot of people, Bruce, there are companies that focused their entire mortgage loan production on other sources, and they were focusing on mortgage refis, doing a refinance and restructure. And most of those people have dropped out of that when the mortgage rates changed. A lot of the people that had big telemarketing operations to go do that stopped, and several of them switched their effort into exactly this, going after reverses now. They've moved out of doing mortgage refinance and going into doing this, and you're going to see more and more of it. And I've got a friend who's doing just that. He was working for a mortgage company, and that was his job. Was he was going after restructures. Now he's doing nothing but focusing on the same thing, and he's selling reverses. So there's a lot more influence, a lot more coming from that. And as our population ages, more and more people are sitting on equity. So you're going to see that a lot more. You're going to have to become familiar with reverses, and you're going to find a lot of people who pass with a reverse that definitely has equity in it.
Yep. Guys, go get yourself a lender that does reverses and just sit down and have a conversation with them. They often put on workshops and different things like that. I'm going to encourage a lot of you guys to get familiar with the whole reverse process and find out some things beyond what we pontificate over. I've sat down with 2 or 3 lenders to discuss this. And if you don't know anything about it, I encourage you to, because it will affect you, will impact you on some of your deals in the probate space. All right. Do we have any questions that have come in? Guys, this is your call. Normally, I'm not sitting in a truck when we host this, but this is your call. If you have questions, that you've had this week. So if you had some success, you signed a listing agreement, you closed a deal, you purchased a house out of the probate space, we want to hear about it. Or divorce leads. So we're doing divorce leads in some markets now. So we want to hear about those, and we also want to hear your ideas. If you have anything that's been working for you that you want to share, we want to hear those. So pop the hands up, ask the questions. We're here to talk to you guys, and we like interaction.
Zeke, anything on social media, bud?
Yes, we had a few questions come in. One from Edward, or actually 3 from Edward. The first being, is it too soon to contact them when they had just filed probate, assuming them as the PR? We can start with that one.
Absolutely not too soon. If they just filed, you probably want to take a look at the date of death. If the date of death is a week, 2 weeks, sometimes even a month, just be aware that you're going to lead with some empathy. So you want to ask them if they're involved with the estate. Yes. If that was a family member of yours, I'm sorry to hear about the loss. Do you mind if I take a quick second to tell you why I was calling? That's kind of your opening. Don't be afraid to call them if they just filed. That's the time that you want to, because some people are low-hanging fruit. They go into probate, they want to put that house on the market and sell it immediately. Other people want to take some time, and they're going to resist you for a little bit. But you're never going to be too soon in starting to establish the relationship and rapport. So if they just filed, call them. Treat it a little bit differently than you would otherwise, but call them.
And then the next part of that question is, does it also make sense to contact the heirs? Maybe also send direct mail to them.
So generally, we encourage you to direct mail the personal representative. Now, if you're dealing with a pre-probate, so they have not gone and filed probate, you don't know who the personal representative is going to be for that estate. So yes, you would want to mail the additional heirs. On probate, you know who the PR is, you know who's handling the estate. So it's generally best to just mail them, the personal representative or the administrator, a handful of times. Don't send one letter and expect that everybody's going to pick the phone up and call you back. It's a marketing game. So you want to do that a handful of times. Now, when it comes to the phone, I call all heirs. Normally, it's just the first one on that first round. If they haven't returned my call by the time I'm ready to go back through that list again, I'm going to call the additional heirs or contacts that are tagged on the estate.
Gotcha. And then his final question was, what works best, sending one handwritten letter a week or sending a postcard?
So I wouldn't do too many handwritten letters. I would absolutely send a handwritten letter. It depends how big your list is, how many people you're going after. If you're trying to do a handwritten letter to a list of 50 people, and then you add 50 new next month and 50 new and 50 new, you're going to burn yourself out. If you want to handwrite a letter, I would probably do one, and then I would mix in a couple of typed letters after that, and I would mix in postcards. Postcards are more of a branding focus. They're not meant to convey your entire message. It's kind of a reminder of who you are and what you do to the person who's already received letters, already received phone calls. So we definitely encourage postcards, but they're something to mix in. They're not something to lead with.
And by definition, the handwritten letter, I'm assuming we're not doing it where you're personally doing it with a pen and, getting writer's cramp to do it. If you're doing several hundred of those every time, you're really not valuing your time very well. You need to have us do that for you, or, a service doing it for you, because we put them out the same way and give you the same appearance and free your time up to go do that. So that's the whole point of using a print service, to print those letters out for you. But definitely go do that. Go back to your second question again for just 1 second. What was it again?
The second question was, does it make sense to also contact the heirs?
Right. So the only thing I was going to add in that is that there is one time that always would make sense at any point if you wanted to reach out to the heirs, and that would be to talk about, on a probate lead, to talk about probate cash, because they're the people who typically would be most responsive to that, and that helps you build that relationship with them. If you wanted to at some point do a mailing to the heirs just to keep the ball moving and keep everybody happy, that would be one to do, to talk to them about probate cash. You could do it with a postcard. You can do it whatever you want to do, but that would be a great one to mail them.
Perfect.
All right, then I have another question from John, if you guys are ready for that.
John, do you want to ask your question live, or do you want us to read it? I mean, we can certainly read it, but we like interaction too.
I'll ask him to unmute and see.
Okay.
There we go. I'm there. Am I there?
Yep.
Hey, John.
Okay, so listen, I've done probates for many, many years, and originally I'm from Boston, and that's where I did them. And maybe I knew more people, or things are a little different. I'm in LA, very populous. Nobody's answering the phone. Like, not nobody, but it's very difficult. So I'm building up a volume of leads. Some of them are a year, 2, 3 years old. How long would you guys suggest we hold on to these? Even some of them I haven't contacted because they're not answering the phone, but they haven't sold the property yet. Any feedback for those in very populous areas, or LA people don't want to talk to you?
Are you just calling? Is that all you're doing?
No, I call, I door knock when I can. Nobody answers the door. They get fences and gates everywhere. Nobody answers the door because there's so much crime and crap going on in LA. So I do door knock, phone calls, letters, postcards, and I have a call assistant also making calls in addition to that. So I find myself getting down the rabbit hole of, okay, this guy's 3 years, but he hasn't sold the house yet and it's vacant. How long do I hang on?
I would, if you know that the house is vacant and it hasn't been sold, hang on as long as you can, as long as you have the bandwidth to do it. I would continue years later if I knew that the house was empty and still in the family. If I knew.
I don't know that it's vacant, but it's still in the family, not sold, and there's multiple heirs. Somebody's going to want to someday say, "Where's my money?" That's what I'm thinking.
Normally, that is the case. Someone wants their money at some point. So, just in general marketing, if I'm in LA, I'm going to run definitely over 6 months because they're busy. Life is busy. I tell a lot of people go 6 months. In LA, I'm probably going to run a year at least. And then I'm going to sort that list out. I might run Property Plus against it. I might
Yeah.
manually scrub it, and I'm going to sort it out and figure out who still owns.
So what I do
Once
is
I know,
I get a virtual assistant and I have that person scrub it every 90 days, take out the ones that have sold. You know,
Yep.
$8 an hour doing that.
yep. Once you've got that, then anyone that's left, I'm going to put on, after a year, I'm probably going to put on a quarterly drip
Okay.
with a letter and a postcard every quarter.
And that's pretty much what I've been following, but it's good to get reinforcement from other people, because if you're living by yourself and doing your own thing, it's good to hear it from guys like yourselves.
John, what market in LA are you working? What area specifically?
If you know the area like Hollywood down to Santa Monica and down a little bit Hancock Park, in the Valley, Van Nuys, try to get that geographic area about 15 miles from Hollywood.
Okay, that's why I was asking you the question, because I was thinking about, how I do know the market, and I was trying to think of how you might make a difference in that marketplace and be seen. And, part of the problem is that if you go around and door knock in a lot of those areas, you're going to be in jail before you get too far down the road, as you well know. You may want to look at doing some sort of a higher value marketing piece that you put out that basically starts with a cover letter that says, hey, I've called, I've knocked, I've tried, I'm doing everything in the world to reach you. I've got somebody that really wants to buy, the house at 123 Rodeo Drive, and you're not talking to me. I'm trying to find a way to get through to you. Put something that it makes it hard for them to ignore. I mean, you've got to kind of get outside the box a little bit.
Right.
I mean, that's just kind of all I'm suggesting is you're talking about all the traditional things that you're doing, and you're in one of, if not the, top 3 most competitive markets in the country, and you picked one of the most competitive circles you could draw on that market. So,
Right.
I mean, it's not like you're picking over the spoils of the market. You're trying to find a winner in a bunch of winners. So you got to be different.
A big toolbox and have a lot of tools in it, basically.
Right. And all I was suggesting is that this might be somewhere that you, at the 6-month time frame, getting no other action, Bruce is putting together a book that we're going to be putting out to let you go deal with. And you might want to get a supply of those and drop a high value piece in the mail to the PR of anybody that, has gone that far. It's got a cover letter. It says, I'm doing everything I can to reach out here. Here's why you should be talking to me, and, get off the dime and call me.
Yep,
like
and
that.
one of the things that I would recommend for you, John, is
And where are you,
I
Chuck?
would- Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah, but where are you located?
I'm located I'm west of Philadelphia.
Okay,
But my suggestion for getting that attention grabbing piece, you could get a
Right.
larger size postcard, have somebody take a picture of you standing in front of the house, with a type of shrug of the shoulders, and you could put some text on it that explains that I've called, I've knocked, I've mailed. We have somebody here. You can change this vacant house into cash. Just give me a chance, or just give me a call. Let's connect. I'm here. I don't have horns growing out of my head. That's sort of the point you want to convey to them. But
Right.
you could even be wearing one of those question mark zoot suits that really has you stand out. It can be an obnoxious marketing piece, but you want to grab somebody's attention. So in the investor marketing space, there were some folks that were doing that Google Street View postcards over the past number of years. And people really react to that when they see their property on a postcard in the mail and it shows up and they're like, whoa, hey, what the heck is going on here? That will elicit a response. And then we just need to mediate that response a little bit.
Excellent.
Chuck, I got one of those from a roofing company. It showed the roof of my house, obviously the roof of my house, something to the effect that looks like you could use a new roof or something like that, which I don't. But still, it got my attention out of all the junk mail I get. That is a great idea. It's very, very, very highly effective. Good idea.
I'll tell you what would make it more effective is if you could get it while they were sunbathing in the backyard.
Yeah.
That would.
Well, I think in those particular marketing pieces are based off of Google Earth, and it's just that satellite view top down. But you could do lumpy mail. You could, you could send them a burner phone, right? I mean, here, I've even provided you the phone. I mean, just think out of the box on these types of creative ways to reach out to somebody. Put it in a box, put it in a present, something like that. It's worth the time in those type of cases, because I'm sure you have a pretty short list when it comes to those particular cases of they're vacant, they're 2-3 years old. Go to the high value ones and say, hey, I'm willing to give this as a test. We always have to be testing in our marketing approach to see what types of response we'll get.
Yeah, because you're in an unusual market. You're in a market where, $1 million home literally can sit for 3 or 4 years and nothing happens on it because the people that own it, $1 million isn't burning a hole in their pocket. And,
Right.
it kind of, you're in a different world. For sure.
I got a marketing piece that I heard, and I think Chuck was speaking, just reminded me of something. You take the letter, and I'm going to try this. You take the letter that you already sent them 2 weeks ago. You crumple it up, you put it back in an envelope with a new letter, and you say, hey, I took this out of your trash. I'm trying to get your attention about this property. I'm going to try that one.
I'll tell you another thing that you may want to try is you might want to try a small pre-stamped postcard inserted into your letters with a quick question that just is a return address to you. Hey, I've tried to get you. Have you considered selling the house? Yes, no, check. Send it back.
Bruce, I like that one. I like that one a lot. It'll clean out the list. It'll probably, somebody elicit a response that hopefully is going to be positive. I like that one. That's a good one. I'm going to use that one, 100%.
And anything like that you come up with that you want to try, I mean, certainly we're Printer will be happy to help you do it. But if you do it, you try it and you got success, and there are things that we're doing together like that can help other people. Come back and let us know you did it.
100%.
Share. That's the whole idea here.
100%. Thank you.
Love it. John, thanks, man. Thanks for jumping on live with us too.
I appreciate it.
You bet. Anything else, Zeke?
No questions online, just a lot of people liking the ideas, Chuck.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good. Anybody else have questions they'd like to ask today?
You'd use a win of the week if anybody has a success story, a challenge, a win, an idea of the week. We're always open to. It's a pretty unusual market right now. It's certainly a changing market in most areas, at least somewhat changing. So anything anybody have? What's that?
It's refreshing.
Oh yeah. I love the little meme going around. For those of you only in the business a couple of years, the definition of what a price reduction is, in case you didn't realize, it's when the owner reduces the price. Yeah, that's first time they've ever had to deal with that.
Here's something I want to tell a lot of you guys about price reductions. And I know we have a lot of seasoned investors and agents here. We're seeing a lot of price reductions in my market, but I'll tell you, don't just focus on the price reduction. Don't go to the MLS and say, holy crap, we've got 800 price reductions today, without getting some context there. And the context for the majority of us and the majority of our markets is the sky is not falling. The price reductions that you are seeing are tied heavily to people that were overpricing their houses. They were trying to stretch the previously all-time high by 5%. That's what I'm seeing. We've got a bunch of price reductions, and almost every single time they were taking the all-time high and they were trying to get an extra 2, 3, 4, 5%. Those are the people that are reducing. So don't just look at the reductions and think that the sky's falling. It's not.
Yep.
In most markets.
Yep. As an example, I mean, here in our market, we had a new buyer consultation for someone relocating from Nashville to come back here to South Central Pennsylvania. And we talked with them. They're like, yeah, well, I don't know. We asked them, have you seen any houses on the market that may have been of interest to you? And they said, yeah, but it's probably not worth the while. We said, well, please send them over so we can at least, take a look at them. They've been on the market for a month, maybe a little bit longer. my wife is like, well, I'm going to schedule these showings based on my available schedule because we do virtual reality, virtual showing tours for our buyers, and scheduled it for Friday morning. The agents, the listing agents, are now calling the buyer's agent saying, oh my goodness, we have really motivated sellers. We have 0 offers. We've been on the market for a month. It's been redone top to bottom, and it's been a lot of revitalization in our micropolitan city here. And it's a bit refreshing because now we have time to actually work the process to really satisfy our clients. So think of it, not as a negative. And I think many agents are also saying, I can breathe a little bit compared to what we've been dealing with over the past number of years, and leverage it to your advantage, and continue to communicate that to your sphere about what's going on in your day-to-day life. And I think, Bruce, as we start launching these small group masterminds and we start digging into more depth than what we teach in probate foundations and some of the mastery courses that we have, I mean, week by week, we'll be able to go through many of these different marketing approaches, whether it's being innovative on direct mail specific to helping people settle estates, but also in the digital marketing space. Yesterday, I had a meeting with one of my probate attorneys on my solutions team that, and I asked him, I said, hey, are you apprehensive about being on camera? Because I'd really like to be able to start building additional content for my digital presence, YouTube channel, etc., to be able to start educating people and get attraction marketing. Because even for our regular real estate business, we're getting deals from people out of comments on YouTube, out of reaching out to us on our contact form on our website, because we're driving people in the digital space. We regularly talk week in and week out, and the 3 legs of our stool, just to get started in this probate space, is going to be your direct mail, your cold prospecting, and having a digital presence. But we really position that digital presence to be a credibility site. But now the fourth leg to make a really strong stool then is going to be your sphere of influence. But I think as we build out these small group masterminds, we'll be able to start expanding on some of this digital marketing that is working as the marketplace has changed in the recent months. So please stay tuned. With Bruce and I, we're pretty excited about bringing these small group masterminds to you. And it's going to be a good opportunity for you to take your existing or your beginning probate business and really get that consistency that's going to show you those checks going into Hip National Bank week in and week out. And that's what we're here for. We're rooting for you, and we're here to help.
Awesome.
Hey, let me just make one other point about the price changing that's going on here. Right now the news is very sensitive to, we've moved into a world and an environment where news is instantaneous, and the rumor becomes fact in minutes because it's out there. The thing that you got to realize is that what's controlling the price changes in your local marketplace, there are multiple things that have impact on that. But at the bottom of all of it is supply. The prices went up when supply changed. The prices will go down as supply changes. So if you're in a real estate market right now, you may be in a real estate market where prices are still going up. I mean, that there are people probably on this call that are in a market where they're going up. I looked last night. We do research all the time, and I was looking last night at where the price is going up. Still, where are they going down? And it's surprising, and a lot of it has to do with what happened in the last 3 years. Because if you're in a market where people were able to, in other words, you're where you didn't have weather issues as much as in other marketplaces, the South has been able to build almost around the clock for the last 36 months. So they've built a lot of new property, a lot of stuff's available. In a lot of marketplaces, there's been no increase in supply. And so people are still trying to find the properties that are there. You become part of a self-fulfilling prophecy if you spend a lot of time talking about, what's going on in the pricing marketplaces, and you are an influencer, Chuck made a point there about trying to influence his market with the people that, are doing things in social media. You're an influencer. And I'm not suggesting that you falsify your market. I'm just saying, or you falsify what's going on in the market or don't pay attention, but be aware that we have influence as a group on what's going on, and the sky is definitely not falling. Now, that doesn't mean that, tomorrow the Fed won't raise the interest rates another point, and lots of stuff that could happen to make things far more negative than they are now, but they're not there now. And right now, your job is to take advantage of your local marketplace as best you can to continue to provide good service. But don't sit here and be concerned that, the roof's going to cave in on you. You're in a perfect time to build market share. It couldn't be a better time to do that because supply has certainly not outstripped demand in most marketplaces. I know that sounds like pontificating, but it annoys the crap out of me to watch TV and watch all the, the talking heads on the news come on and go, oh my God, the real estate bubble is going to pop again, and here we go. A lot of the conditions are different this time. They're not all different, but some of them are for sure. And this is very much built on supply and demand. A lot of the previous side of this was built purely on greed, and this has been a lot of supply and demand issue. Make sense?
Yep. Doug Converse, you've been patiently waiting to ask a question. I think you're unmuted now.
Thank you, Jim. The situation I have is I've located a PR, and he's looking after his parents' property. It's been a rental for his parents before the father passed, and it's being squatted on, and it has for 3 years, and he doesn't have any idea how to get the people out. He's trying to go through the court to do it, but it's just taking a really long time. I'm wondering if you might have any advice or any suggestions on how to about selling it, because I have a potential buyer. So the question, I guess,
who is squatting?
I have no idea.
Does he? So he doesn't know them. They're not family members, anything like that. They're just people.
They're just people that work their way in.
And has he filed? He's gone through the eviction filing process.
He said he started something, and he's waiting for the court to move forward. So yes, he has filed the eviction process, but I was just, I guess what I'm curious about is how can I bring him a buyer, and what can I tell the buyer to expect in this process? Because it's, I've done a lot of evictions, but when I've done them, it's been,
He's got trespassers. He doesn't have renters. He's got trespassers.
Yes.
That's very different. You don't have
Which market are you in?
Yeah, exactly. Where are you?
Pacific Northwest, the Seattle area.
Yeah,
probably one of the hardest places in the world to get people out.
Yes, no kidding. Tell me about it.
Yeah, sorry, never mind.
Well, I know, but the politics here will support the squatter.
That's why I was saying what I said. But the reality is, it's usually a renter that they're protecting. If the people that are there have no legal right to be there, the only thing I would ask is, do you know if there is a possession by a domain by possession law there? You might want to do a little quick research. There are certain states that if you accept a person living in something that you own for X amount of time, you eventually get to the point that there is an inherent contract in that. And I don't know if 3 years doesn't sound like it would be long enough, and it depends on how long they've been after him. But there are circumstances, almost like a common law marriage, where if you've been living in the same place for so long, you can't get thrown out. Very few states are like that. You might be well living in one of them. I'd find that out. Otherwise, get the sheriff, go in there and get them out, and the sheriff will do the job. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It just sounds like you've got to go after them to get them out.
Okay.
Douglas, have you had a conversation?
Yeah.
Have you had a conversation with your referral partner attorney of choice? I mean, your go-to real estate attorney. I I would set up a consult or at least have a phone call there and just talk through the particulars of the situation. And I mean, in most of those situations, I'm leaning on my professional partners on my solutions team.
All right, I'll do so. I thought that I called Legal Shield, which I'm a member of, and they told me that I would need to extend my membership to in company or to incorporate a business, because this is a business
Oh,
Yep.
gotcha.
situation.
So in that particular case, I have someone here in our market that's actually a litigator for landlords. And, you know, so having somebody that has that litigation background and they're not just a paper pusher, that can be really, really important. And if you can get a bulldog in there, and again, I'm in Pennsylvania, I'm not in Washington. So that's a huge disclaimer there from that standpoint.
All right.
You also might want to check in the local RIA. Are you a member of the local Real Estate Investor Association?
I have been in the past. I know just about everybody in it. I would gladly rejoin.
Well, the reason I'm saying that is that would be a great question to ask of that group. There almost always in a RIA, there are rental subgroups and stuff like that. And I suspect you're not the first person that's run into that in your marketplace. I would ask if you know a lot of people within that RIA, they're the people I'd ask. They've got feet on the street. They've dealt with it before. They could also help you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Douglas,
Yes.
we've had a couple of people mention Legal Shield. I have a membership. It's not going to help you with this. It's relatively kind of low level. It's good for sending letters. They're not going to enforce what their demand letter is going to gonna ask for.
Yeah.
So you probably need another attorney, someone that your client hires, or you could always bring a buyer in who has gone through this before and they buy it at a discount and they deal with the eviction themselves. Some buyers aren't scared of that if they get a good price on a house.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I was thinking of just removing the doors. Removing
That
There
sounds
can be-
super safe. No.
There can be rules against that as well, especially in Washington. You want to be careful because you could end up getting prosecuted in it's really bass backwards, but be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why why where are you was so important.
It's funny,
That-
Doug, there was a guy in my
Douglas,
market that did
Just
that.
so everyone knows, he was joking. He was joking.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
joking.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yes.
I know.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, I'm just gonna say, there was a guy in my market, he didn't specialize in the greatest areas and nobody would spend the night there with it without a locked door. So he actually did that. He would remove the door, they'd be going by the next day. But I wouldn't recommend it either, though. They'll go down to legal aid, get an advocate, you're gonna be in some big trouble.
Yeah, I just want to bring one other thing. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking about this for a second. This person that you're dealing with, do they have title to that property?
Yes.
Have you seen it?
It's on the tax records.
So they're the owner of the property, and they're telling you that the people that are in there they're just squatters. They're not renters. They don't have any documentation whatsoever.
That's correct.
And they've been in there 3 years. Have they done any kind of action whatsoever in that period of time to try to get them out?
I don't know. It sounds like he's tried, but he just he doesn't get much response from them. I don't know.
Of course not.
I don't know the extent of his efforts.
I would expect he wouldn't get any response at all.
Hey, could I
Okay.
chime in on that?
Yeah, please.
So I've encountered that twice here in Los Angeles. It's probably just as liberal as you are up there or more so. So because my seller was motivated, he offered a discount to the buyer, as the other fellow said at the beginning, and gave the problem to the new owner. And the owner said, okay, thank you very much. Here's the discount. I'm out of here.
Okay.
I did that twice.
All right. I'll give that
Great
a
idea.
try. I'll give that a try. Thank you,
Funny,
John.
John, I was gonna add to that, the carrot or the stick, possibly if they got some legal notice, even if it was from legal aid that didn't cost you a whole lot, that would be the stick. And once they're on notice, your buyer showed up with some kind of a bribe. That might be the
Right.
most
For
most
sure.
efficient way to get them out of there for sure. Certainly be the quickest if it works.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, this
exactly.
is a great
You-
group. I want to leave you guys with a win,
Please.
if I may.
Yeah, we want to hear it. Before you
So-
do, John,
Go ahead.
before
Go.
you do, sorry.
Go.
Douglas, Casper Keys, ask your seller if he's willing to offer cash in exchange for them moving out. So potentially if you can catch the squatters outside of the house, and if he's willing to do it, say, hey, I'll give you $3,000 if you can move out by such and such a date. That would be another thing that you could potentially do. All right, I'll shut up. John, I wanted to hear your win. I saw your chat earlier.
So this actually has to do with my question earlier about how much follow-up to do. So I had a broker in Las Vegas call me up for a listing referral probate. I asked, how did you find me? And fortunately, she said she Googled me and I came up on the list, which is good. So I listed the property, closed it last week. The owner sends me an email with pictures of the 6 letters that I had sent to him over the course of the last year, including postcards from send-out cards and all this kind of stuff. So I paid out the referral, of course, but you see how the stuff gets lost in the shuffle here in LA. It's brutal. So that's why anybody else.
Yeah, I guarantee that seller, when he heard your name, he was like, man, I've been meaning to call that guy. That's
certainly hope
why
so.
you follow through and you stick
Right.
with it, folks, is because people will save your stuff. They will
Yeah.
absolutely save your stuff, even if they're not calling you right away.
Everybody's got a nag file. Everybody's got a nag file of mail. They may not have even opened. They know what's in it, but it's that nag file. I'm going to get around to that.
Yep.
Have a good day. Thank you, guys.
John,
Great
thanks,
group.
man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, everybody.
I think we're about to that time unless there's anything else. Zeke, you got anything, bud?
Yeah, I have a few things. Winston did have his hand up. I'll ask him to unmute to see if he still has a question. And other than that, I had a couple other questions. One was from Kim. She just said that she was just getting started with probate leads. She's a newbie here in Florida. What's the best way to get started?
3 pillars, really 4 or 5 if you count Chuck's comments earlier. So, which we're going to count. So your first pillars are get a couple of letters out the door. You, in a perfect world, want to have a kind of a 6-month mailing campaign. In a perfect world, some people go even longer, like you heard with John a few minutes ago. You don't have to start with that. If that's going to freeze you up and postpone your marketing, just start with 1 or 2, and then expand on it. You want to pick the phone up and have genuine conversations with folks. Join Probate Foundations or Dialogue, like Prospecting Mastery here in a couple of weeks. Join one of those if you don't know what to say. Third thing is you want to have a digital presence, a credibility site or a blog or a series of videos that talk about what you do in the probate space, specifically in the probate space, because if they Google you and everything that you have online says that you're a buyer's agent working with first-time buyers, they're not going to find you credible as a probate or an estate settlement expert. So make sure that you have good digital presence there. You could start with a simple website. And then I would mix in, so don't sweat this a whole lot right away getting started, but I would mix in my sphere of influence conversations, telling them about probate, and attorney outreach. So those, we don't want to forget those, but start with a couple of letters, phone calls, and a credibility website that talks about your involvement with estate settlement or probate.
You missed one, Bruce. Have an orientation call with Chuck.
Have an orientation call with Chuck. It's online. You can go book that under the training drop down in your subscriber portal. There's training and coaching menus there. Book the education and the coaching that we have available.
Can I say something in an answer to her question? Bruce, what's the name of the class that you teach for making outbound calls?
Prospecting Mastery.
Prospecting Mastery. You should take that. The scripts are just unbelievable. And they're so good that they make you feel comfortable doing it because you're really coming from a place of contribution and not forcing yourself on them. And they're incredible scripts.
Thank you, Douglas. Appreciate it. Always very gracious.
And I
Good.
guess we'll finish up with Winston. Winston?
Winston, you here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I unmuted him, then he muted. We'll see if he.
Hey, guys.
Oh, yay.
Okay, I've just got a real quick win. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit old. It happened in June, but small win for me, but it ended up being a huge win for my son. And what happened real quick is that he was looking, he and his wife and 3 kids were looking for a special area with a very specialized school district. Inventory was extremely low, competition very high. The gentleman that was the listing agent was also serving dual roles here as the executor. He knew nothing about probate. In my email signature, I put down realtor, probate solution specialist, U.S. veteran, and then I put that credibility website that Bruce just talked about. That initiated several conversations where I could help ease his mind. I wasn't playing probate attorney, but through the teachings and the classes that I've gained here, excuse the phone there, that I've gained here, I was able to give him assurance, confidence, peace of mind, and we developed a very strong bond of trust. With that, we were selected. My son got his home. He's absolutely thrilled, and there has been nothing since that has popped up. So he feels very blessed to have been able to purchase that property. And it was that credibility website and that mention in my email that I'm a probate solution specialist that made the deal.
Amazing. And I like the way, Winston, you phrased that, probate solution specialist. We want to be experts, but we have to realize that sometimes you're not an expert. If you're not an expert, talk about being a specialist. So, Winston, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It made my son, his wife, and his 3 kids very happy. So kudos to you guys.
Well, thanks to everybody today. What a great call. This has been a lot of great info today.
Yep.
Winston, I DM'd you specifically. Sorry, nobody needed to know that, but I wanted him to look at it before we jumped off. All right. Great call. Jim?
All right, guys. Excellent call today, as always. They just keep getting better and better. The attendance is up. The participation is great. We had at least 2 good win of the weeks. We'll let Zeke decide the winner. We'll have a little conference and get back to you. But I want to thank each of you for being here today, particularly thank those who actively participated. I want to challenge each of you, just take one idea that inspired you on this call, go out and put it into practice, and please come back next Thursday and share your results with the group. Have a great week, everybody. Talk to you same time next Thursday. Take care.